I just got married, but I don't feel like I want to have sex all the time. Advice. Lots of questions on birth control, worst period story. Were you nervous on your wedding night for your hubby to see your body or parts? I was humbled my first year of marriage. Come on. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, I am Kian. This is handsome, my handsome boy, my one and only son. Yeah. Today we're going to be doing a girl talk video. So you gotta leave. This is girls only zone. And I asked you guys for any of your girl talk questions on Instagram. If you guys want to follow me, you can follow me right here at Kian Wolfgang, and I'm just going to go through them and start answering. I'm no expert on being a girl, but I will be honest with you, so at least you have that. Okay, first question. Any advice when it comes to being a less naggy wife? Girl, I was humbled my first year of marriage because I just realized how naggy I was. And in the Bible, it says, basically it's better to live on the corner of a rooftop than live with a nagging wife. So I've been working hard to stop, and I think well, first I would read the book Love and Respect. That has been so helpful. I actually really should reread it. That was really helpful, but also it's just like really small things. You just need to really control your urges and ask God and the Holy Spirit if He wants you, how He wants you to say things, if He even wants you to bring it up. There's so many things that we really do not need to correct our husbands or nag them about. It's just this like urge that you have to resist. Okay, but let me like get more practical. So for example, I find myself doing it in a couple different ways. One is like correcting him on things that don't really matter. Like, oh yeah, we went, like if he's recalling something and, you know, it wasn't, he's saying like it happened at 4 o'clock, but it really happened at 6 o'clock. Like, does that really matter? Do I need to be correcting that? I feel like that can be really naggy, and I just feel like it's like irrelevant. So why do I try to correct all the little details? I feel like that can be also disrespectful unless he's asking for clarity on something. And then other ways, it can be like being passive about things that I want or how I feel about something instead of just directly saying it. So that's something that's something my therapist talked to me about, is just actually telling people what you want from them. So instead of like, you never come and hug me when I'm sad, or like something like that, it could just be like, hey babe, I would really love a hug right now. So instead of kind of like putting them down when you're not receiving something, to instead just ask for exactly what you want. If you really need a hug, if you really need a compliment, just ask them and make it a firm request and not a like workaround where it ends up putting them down, if that makes sense. I feel like my advice is kind of all over the place right now, but I hope that makes sense. Kyle and I agreed that we don't want to have a humor that like puts each other down. And so like teasing one another in front of other people especially, I feel like can really do harm in a relationship. And if you keep doing that for years, it just becomes a habit. So just things like, oh, like Kyle didn't feed the dog today, or like Kian forgot to do this again. Like just little comments like that, I feel like are so, I don't know, they're just not necessary. So yep, ask for what you want. Withhold from saying things that are really unnecessary or correcting things that just like do not matter. And always praise your husband and say something like very kind before giving any kind of correction, I would say. Like, if your husband did the dishes, but he didn't do them, like he missed a dish or something like that, instead of be like, honey, you didn't wash the pan on the stove, you could instead say like, hey baby, thank you so much for doing the dishes. There's like one more pan on the stove. Could you clean that for me? Hansi, you are a troublemaker today. And other wives, especially ones who have been married longer, feel free to leave your advice in the comments. Handsome's playing with a sock right now. Lots of questions on birth control. Kyle and I actually talked about the method of birth control we use in one of our recent Juicy Marriage Q&As on our joint channel, so I'll have that linked up above. We're currently using condoms, however, we will probably switch to natural family planning soon. And we just talk more in depth about that. I personally was on birth control for many years in different forms, whether that was through taking a pill or I also had the implant in my arm, and both had very negative side effects on my body. And so I knew I wanted to get off that. So I actually got off birth control before I even met Kyle. And then moving into marriage, we had talked about natural family planning, which is tracking your cycle and your fertility. And then you just like avoid having sex on the days that you're very fertile if you're not trying to have kids, and then you have sex on the days you're really fertile if you are trying to have kids. That is the form of birth control we're using now, but I think it'll probably change soon, and I know everyone has their opinions. Somebody said, I'm always suspicious of my loving boyfriend no matter how open he is to me. Why? And the same girl also asked a question, is it normal to hate your boyfriend having fun with others without you, or am I obsessively crazy? Okay, I will say this is definitely a you thing that you should definitely work through. I would assume that it comes from some kind of insecurity, maybe with a past relationship. Nancy's just trying to steal all my socks. And you are kind of taking that out on your current boyfriend if he has not given you a reason not to trust him, or you get jealous when he's having fun with other people. I would say those are unhealthy behaviors in a relationship. It might stem from control, insecurity, fear, some kind of infidelity, cheating in the past from other, I don't know. You know the answers, so I would just ask the Holy Spirit and be like, God, what is this stemming from? Because those kinds of behaviors, I think, will eventually drive your boyfriend away, because nobody wants, like, I would never want to be out having fun with my friends and then my husband to be jealous or angry at me for doing something healthy, which is having fun with my friends. So yeah, I would, if you have access, I would talk to a therapist about that. I use Faithful Counseling. It's a Christian therapy. I always have my affiliate link in the description, but a therapist could really help you work through that, or maybe seek counsel with somebody at church or something like that. But I think it's definitely a deeper thing that I would encourage you to work through, because that will follow you. Those insecurities will follow you until you face them and get healing in it. Maybe TMI, but can we talk about discharge? Has your hubby ever been grossed out? I feel like Kyle is maybe unaware of discharge. It's not like he's looking at my underwear or like, you know, I don't know. When I first started getting discharge as a young teen or a preteen, I was like, what is all this stuff? Is this normal? It's very normal, and during different times of your cycle, you have more or less, and it can change based on that. I'm sorry, handsome. Like, we're now 3 socks in. Drop it. But Kyle's not here for me to ask him, but I really don't think he like even knows much about discharge or gets grossed out about it or anything. I mean, really the only thing that grosses Kyle out is like talking about my period like excessively. Like, he doesn't want to hear about that. But all right, is it normal to shave down there for the honeymoon? And then somebody asked about Brazilian waxes, and someone else asked how to prepare for your wedding night down there. Obviously, everybody is different. Everyone has a different preference. I personally like it to be clean shaved, at least for my wedding. That's what I want. Now that I'm married, I don't always do that. But I decided to get a Brazilian wax, I think 2 months before my wedding, just to see how I reacted, and I would highly encourage to do it before your wedding to make sure you're okay. And I did, and I had gotten it like once or twice in the past, so I kind of knew what to expect. And the first one hurts a lot, I will say that, but it does get better over time. So I did the first one a few months before my wedding to try it out. I basically scheduled it to make sure I could get one like a week before my wedding. So yeah, I think it was like 4 or 5 days before my wedding I got my second one, and the day after, if you don't use the right products, you might develop like little bumps. So I did have a little reaction, I think the week of my wedding, but they did go away by my wedding night. And yeah, it just like lasts quite a bit of time, and I just continually got waxed throughout our first like 6 months of marriage, I think. But then I started getting ingrown hairs, and it started to like leave scarring, and it was just getting really bad with the ingrown hairs, which I don't know if I just wasn't exfoliating properly or what, but I'm still dealing with the consequences of that. So I don't know if I have the best solution, but that is what I did for my wedding night. And I would definitely, whatever you do, just make sure to practice or try it out beforehand. Really, handsome? A shoe now? I just got married, but I don't feel like I want to have sex all the time. Advice. Okay, wanting to have sex all the time is not a realistic expectation. From my experience as a woman, depending on your cycle, depending on your mental health, depending on the foods you're eating, there's so many things that can affect your sex drive. There's a really good podcast called Reclaiming the Female Libido. I'll have it in the description, and it is a biblical perspective on the female libido, and it just explains a lot more about like how our diets can even affect that, or hormonal birth control can affect it, getting off the pill can affect that, like so many, sexual trauma can affect it. So there's so many reasons why that could be, but I also want to say like wanting to do it all the time is not a realistic expectation. I find I want to have more sex if I'm mentally in a good place, if I feel good about myself, if I'm getting ready, if I'm being hygienic, if I'm wearing things that make me feel beautiful. So I would start with those things. Also like prepping your mind and like making it a commitment that night or that day, and just be like teasing it and building up the anticipation throughout the day for it. Like, you know, you're gonna have sex that night, and you kind of flirt with your husband, you talk about that throughout the day, and that way it also just like warms up your mind to having sex as well. I think that is a good practical tip. I will also recommend a book called what's it called? It's something about sex for newlyweds. So I will also have that linked in the description, but that was very helpful as well. Kyle and I read that book on our honeymoon, so that was fun. And yeah, would recommend that. But yeah, don't be too hard on yourself. It's normal not to want it all the time, but there's definitely things you can do to nurture that area of your life. Okay, a few people have asked about sex and UTIs, and somebody said they say you have to pee after sex every time in order to avoid UTIs. That is something I have heard since I was in high school probably, and it's something that I've always done. I used to get UTIs in high school a lot more. I actually haven't had any UTIs being married. I don't know what the difference is or anything, but I do always try to pee afterwards. And yeah, there's probably like some scientific reasons behind that, which I'm not sure exactly what they are. I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm sorry, but I'm sure there's a lot of online resources that do. How to tell your boyfriend he's being annoying without hurting his feelings. I would just say to make it about yourself. Sometimes, like, especially when I'm getting my period, I have like definitely a lower tolerance for like goofing off, or someone like just taking a lot of energy to like even have a normal conversation. Like if Kyle's goofing around about something and I like just want an answer from him, I just straight up am like, Kyle, like I just really don't have the energy right now. Like, can you please just be a little bit more calm, because I'm getting like a little stressed out or something, and not so much like, Kyle, you're being so annoying, like stop doing that, you know? So there's just always a good and better way to phrase things, especially if you can make it about yourself and how you're feeling and not about the other person. Were you nervous on your wedding night for your hubby to see your body or parts? No, I was not nervous about that. I'm trying to think back to like when I first started having sex when I was younger, and I'm sure there was like a lot more insecurity, and that is because I wasn't married to those men. And like, trust me, it makes such a huge difference when you wait till marriage, because your confidence in the relationship is built on so much more than physicality. And so when I went into marriage, I was just like, I don't know, I just knew Kyle is my lifetime partner, and we built such amazing, strong relationship without having sex. So I just felt so safe in my body and sexuality once we did start having sex. So, but I definitely know when I was younger and I was having sex with people I wasn't married to, I was a lot more insecure about things. I didn't know what things were supposed to look like, or if they were weird. And, you know, guys at that age gossip a lot and talk about girls, which is so disrespectful. But yeah, I don't know. That's why it's just so, it's just like a soft, warm, cozy, comfortable place for sex within marriage. Somebody asked, I live with my boyfriend who's non-Christian, but I've just been convicted about no sex. Help. Okay, girl, I can relate to this. I lived with my boyfriend, the boyfriend before Kyle, and it was a very interesting situation. He kind of came to Christ because of me, which is a whole separate topic and would not recommend doing that. But we ended up moving in together somehow, and I knew I didn't want to, but I ended up getting talked into doing it. And after a few months, and at this point I was convicted about not having sex, but he wasn't. So he would kind of push me and tempt me, and I would give in, and we ended up having sex a couple times, and I would always cry afterwards and be so sad. I think he was trying to find some security in our relationship by initiating that. Like, he thought that was the key to making me stay, and just kept growing more and more apart. And I just knew our convictions were like so on different pages. Eventually I just got to a point where I was like, I really need to end this relationship. And I went to church one day and he was away from the weekend, and I just got prayer about it, and I just knew like the enemy wanted me to stay in this relationship and God wanted me to leave it, and I had to make a decision which way what direction I was gonna go. And in that moment I knew I didn't have peace about living with him, with even being with him anymore. And so I broke up with him, and it was a very messy break because he insisted on staying in our apartment when I was trying to get him to move out. He insisted on sleeping in the same bed as me when I wanted to sleep in separate rooms. So it was just very messy. But yeah, you can't convict someone else to be convicted about it. Like, that is their personal relationship with God. And I always tell people that if you were saved and you are now convicted about something and your boyfriend's not on the same page, to pray for him, but to end the relationship. And that is the advice I will always stick to, because ending it will be painful on your heart, but it will be even more devastating to be with someone who is not on the same page about what sin is and believing in Jesus. So yeah, sorry, not sorry, because just that's the way the cookie crumbles. Worst period story. Oh my gosh, when me and Kyle, I think this was after we got engaged, we first moved to Arizona, we were going to a young adults night, and we were walking out of like Walmart or Target or something, and a girl stopped me, and she was like, hey, just so you know, like there's like blood on your skirt. And so we were like literally across the street from church, and we were in this parking lot, and Kyle was like took some tissue and was like wiping the blood off of my skirt. And yeah, I'm so comfortable with Kyle, so it wasn't like super embarrassing. I'm sure I've had more embarrassing stories like when I was younger. I don't find it embarrassing, especially like I'm so comfortable with Kyle. But anyway, that's a fun period story in case you were wondering. All right, girls. All right, ladies. All right, girls, women, females. I would assume no guys are watching this, but thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this little girl talk, girl chat, let me know, and let me know what other videos you want to see that maybe are related to this. I appreciate you all for watching. I love you guys, and remember, Jesus loves you more.